Mike?
All my comments were addressed at the previous meeting. This is on for a public hearing.
Pat?
As you heard last meeting, Mr. Chairman, this is simply a regrading in preparation of the next phase of the cemetery. There are no planning issues with respect to that, so we have no objections to advancing the application.
Rich?
All engineering comments have been addressed.
And Mr. Chairman, we do have a resolution of approval for you this evening.
Anybody on the board have any comments? Anybody from the public wish to be heard on this topic?
Being there are no public comments, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
And a motion to adopt the grading?
Actually, we need to vote all in favor.
All, do we have a second?
I have a second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll offer the resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Carmel, number 19-10, dated September 25th, 2019, for tax map number 76.16-1-8, Union Valley Cemetery regrading plan.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. As I mentioned, Homeland Towers asked to be held over, so they'll be, I assume they'll be on the next agenda in 2 weeks. Just a reminder for those of you that are here. With that, downtown Mahopac Properties, 559 Route 6, amended site plan. Mike? Joe, do you have a comment?
Yes. I think based on, we've had lots of conversations with the New York State DOT. They have eliminated about 85% of what they asked for. There's just one item left. So if it's okay with the board, we'd like to hold it over. I think we hopefully within the next 2 weeks get that resolved.
It seemed like I saw a couple memos, one as late as 3 or 4 o'clock
Yes.
this afternoon. It seems like you're making progress.
Yes, we
but-
are.
But that's, thank you, that's the right thing to do. Let's close on that 100% and.
But we'd like to see this project, as I'm sure the board would like to
And
see
we'd
it.
like to see the property improved.
Exactly.
Thank you. Sure, let's hold it over.
Do we need a motion?
Thank you,
Oh,
Joel.
that's right, there's no-
Makes sense.
It was to make a motion.
Taco Bell, former friendly site, amended site plan. There's a lot of feedback from the meeting next door also, so may I ask you to please speak loud into the microphone?
Yep.
Mike?
Good
Yeah.
evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Well,
For the-
let me ask the
Oh,
consultants
sorry.
first. Thank you.
Yes.
This is on for resolution. All my comments have been addressed.
All the site planning issues have been addressed, Mr. Chairman, and you have a resolution before you this evening.
It's on for resolution. All comments have been addressed.
Good evening, Paul Dumont, JMC. We have reviewed the resolution that's before you tonight, and we have no comments. So we appreciate your time and consideration, and our clients are excited for construction and to be a part of the community. So
Mike, can you check that microphone's working?
Tap.
Maybe it's a little
It
low.
sounded low, right? Anyone from the board wish to be heard on this?
Thanks.
Now, our consultant has been quite involved in this.
Architectural consultant.
Yep. And I think they've made some good improvements. It might not be exactly what, they're dealing with the Friendlies building, right? But I think we've, the best we can, the best the architect firm has done. I know, Anthony, you had some questions on it earlier, and Kim, but any other comments that you'd like to make on this?
2 comments. Is there any movement on a second tenant or occupant in the building?
No, not at this time. No.
And then just my other comment again is that, the board was very clear on what they had hoped to see with that building, and I feel it was a poor attempt. That's just my personal feeling.
And refresh our memories on when there is another tenant, what will that cause to the site, if anything?
In terms of approvals or
Aesthetics, architectural?
So the architecture is set. We submitted a sign package or example for the second tenant, and they're the only change that you'll see from what you see now is just that second tenant's name in that place instead of the word tenant that was previously on that plan.
And Mr. Chairman, we did include in the resolution a requirement requiring architectural consistency with the building.
Okay, and signage has been looked at, Rich, Pat?
So the space for the signage is there, the tenant to be determined.
Any other,
I think the resolution, Pat, you're right, was worded, you know, so that the second tenant must maintain that same character and look that was approved, so,
okay, any other questions from anybody? We need a motion to adopt the site plan resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Carmel, number 19-09, dated September 25th, 2019, for tax map number 55.11-1-3, Taco Bell, 1081 Stoneley Avenue, amended, final site plan approval.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
thank you.
I'm a nay.
What a mess.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yes. Braymore at Carmel, 49 Seminary Hill Road, Carmel, site plan. Speak, Jeff, I'm speaking to the mic, sorry.
We have a sample board, we can just pass
Please,
around.
please do.
And rocks.
And what, Jeff, what, I haven't seen it, but what are you showing on the sample board?
All the different sidings. We can share this one.
Thank you.
We can share this, sure.
We can share.
My comments?
All of my zoning compliance comments have been addressed. In their second submission, they did everything, so.
Pat?
We've had several rounds of comments on this. The applicant has addressed all of those comments, so we have nothing outstanding.
Rich?
Applicant has addressed all comments. There are things that he will have to do in the future that they've noted. Stormwater management, maintenance agreements, a SWIP, which has been under review right now, but is also being reviewed by the New York City DEP. So a performance bond will need to be approved and provided and approved prior to resolution. But otherwise, the applicant has addressed all of the comments.
Before I ask the board, Jeff, why don't you give us a little update and summary,
Sure.
please?
Sure, Jeff Quintelmo from Insight Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. I'm here with Jessica Cotalese from Philbin Group, which is the applicant. Our architect, Mark McKee, is in transit, coming from Long Island, so I'm not sure he's going to make it. But as your consultants pointed out, we had some minor site plan comments that were residual to the last set of reviews, which we've addressed. Generally speaking, we've widened the turnaround drop-off area as requested by the planner. We've advanced some of the details relative to water and sewer. We've met with Rich to discuss the water and sewer connections, and as Rich pointed out, we've expanded our stormwater pollution prevention plan and submitted that to Rich's office as well as the DEP. So we believe that the site plan itself has been advanced pretty far along. We've also, through our architects, H2M, have responded to your architectural consultant's comments. Your architectural consultant prepared a page and a half of comments. Our architect responded to those comments, and what you have in front of you this evening is in response to several of those comments. The material board that's getting passed around has on it a representative sample of the roofing, the siding. We've got a picture of the stone there. Jessica actually did bring a sample of the stone. It's pretty heavy if you want to pass that around. and
Can you
get a-
show it to us, or?
Get a workout. Everybody thought that was a box of wine. That was a joke of the night, but
We had our hopes up. Okay, you can just leave it there, I think, and, all right, sure.
Thanks, Bill. So- Upside down.
actually, the stone band was one of the comments, I believe, that came out of your architectural consultant to create a watermark along the front elevation and
So
also.
is that on the main entrance there?
That's correct.
To the left, yep.
Yep, so there's a watermark up to the bottom of the windows, and then accents around the terrace area and around the main entrance.
I think that's nice.
Now, is that stone gonna be a dry stack like shown, or is it gonna be a cement joint?
It's basically cultured stone, whether they do a dry joint or a mortar joint, I don't know. I don't know if there's a preference the board has.
I didn't know if that was determined or not. It was dry stack in the sample, I
Yeah,
just was asking.
yeah. We can find out from the architect what his proposal is on that.
Any, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff,
Paul?
on the front elevation, on the two sides, the roof peaks there, what exactly is going on there?
This
A
here?
little unusual, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said, again, this is not my work, I'm not the architect, and I can answer the questions of the stuff that we've discussed and that I do know, but, the element I think Carl's referring to are these 2 points here, which I think has to do with a reflection of what's happening on the side, but something more, I think, needs to be finished there,
Yeah,
right?
it looks a little out of
Yeah,
proportion.
we can have him address that,
Isn't that the stair tower?
right here.
Both sides.
Yeah.
On both sides, yeah.
Looks like a stair tower going up to the roof.
Yeah, it could be, but I think there's maybe some roof element that can be continued there to,
Soften it a
Parapet
little
wall.
bit.
right.
Yeah.
right,
They just have to watch because of the height of the building.
right.
Sometimes they're held to what they can put up there to stay under the height
Right, that's right.
limitation.
Yep. We'll check that out. That's a good point. Thank you.
The only other comment I had was the elements that are gonna have, there's it's referred to, I believe, as the vinyl shingles, that's the larger shingles up there. Just, they seem a little out of proportion to the clapboard and so forth. Is it gonna, it's again, architectural question on,
Yeah, and again, I understanding what you're saying, so the clapboard is a narrow spacing, and then when you move to the
Scale, yeah.
the shake.
Yeah, I mean, this, I believe, is a 7-inch vinyl shake. I think they have a 5-inch one that would probably be more in line with the other
We'll check it
clapboard,
out.
but,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just to break up the visual mass, to have
You know,
different
I
textures
agree,
and,
and I like that.
yeah.
I think it's, otherwise it's a big wall of the element.
Jeff, do you have an east elevation?
Did you bring the other elevation? Yeah, we actually submitted those. I'm sorry, the only colored one we have is the front, and it continues
I'm
around.
just curious to see on each end from the east elevation
Yeah,
what maybe the intent is. And would also those two spots protrude, come towards the center more, to right and left of the center.
Oh, here.
Those.
yeah, we can get you info on that. I think they might be beyond, something beyond, but the east elevation, as I recall it, looking at the drawings, has the one-story back down lower, and then the courtyard, and then the other stories above it, right?
Jeff, on the, going back to what Carl had asked you about those wings on the end, so if we look at the side elevation below it, where are those?
Those are the two
That's,
peaks.
that's,
Well, one peak in this case. Toward
Yeah,
the
that
right
could
there.
be, that
Is
could
that
be,
it?
yeah.
I think that has an actual, that's almost like a gable end, and
Yeah.
it's running in, makes the
right.
vertical wall on the back side, it's a little bit odd.
But we can clarify that and soften it as you just requested.
There's-
No, it's missing.
Mm-hmm, right.
Be this.
Jeff, are you gonna take that to do to go, to clarify what those wings are?
Yeah, we'll get the architect to take a look at the comments this evening, which would be these 2 elements here, these elements protruding here, the shake size, the question about the grout and the stone. We can get answers to that.
One of the early on issues or questions we had was about the water, right? The water and sewer. Has that been, where's that stand?
I'll let Rich.
That has been addressed. So Jeff and I met, I guess, the Monday or Tuesday after last week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago. So last Monday or Tuesday. This was accounted for in the assessments of water and sewer that I had looked at prior for the distillery. So it's numbers that are there. It's within the region of how we saw the water was going to be used for this site. It's a little higher than what I had anticipated, but marginally higher where it's not impacting the overall percent of what I had in my findings.
Thank you.
Jeff, that's what we had talked about?
Correct.
With regards to the siding, I think going to a 5-inch on the shake with the scale of this building would be lost. I think you're better off going to a larger clapboard, a double 5 instead of a double 4.
Yeah, that may be the case, yeah.
Because it's
Yeah,
such
that's
a
what-
huge building, a 5-inch is just gonna look like a million,
Right,
you know.
right, and that's why, we'll get the architect to give his opinion and reasoning, or make a change if he feels, you know, that would help the look of the building. But I appreciate that, thanks, Mark.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
What, actually, one other question. Under the windows, are those individual, like, air conditioning units? What are those?
I believe they're probably like a split ductless system.
Probably like a PTAC unit
Yeah.
or something.
Like a hotel.
Mark McKee's the project architect, so
Okay.
he's here.
Timing
Just in
and
time.
Mark, come on up. We've got 5 questions for you already, so. The first question was, with the stone, are you thinking of going with a dry joint or mortar joint?
Please use the, yeah.
Mortar joint on the stone?
And then a second.
Jeff, I'm sorry, there's 2 microphones. You might need to share them or, you know.
Second question had to do with these roof elements and their abrupt change here, and if there was a way to soften that.
Yeah, that's a stairwell to the roof, so that's
That's what Mike thought.
a lot better than, we thought that was a lot better solution than having a series of walls and whatnot, just tucking it under the roof line, we thought would be the best. From the ground, that really won't even be that, you know,
Pronounced.
you won't really see that.
The third question had to do with the shakes and the reveal on the shakes as compared to the reveal on the clapboard, and if maybe a smaller shake might be more appropriate, or is a larger shake better because of the vertical dimensioning?
Yeah, we can, I mean, that's the real nitty-gritty detail. I mean, we can toy around with that. I guess our thoughts originally were to by having a larger shake and a smaller pattern on the siding, we thought, you know, maybe that kind of breaks the pattern up a little bit more than if it's, you know, so it's a little bit more noticeable.
That's what. And then another question had to do with these rectangular elements over the roof here and here.
What are they?
Those are just elevator bulkheads. You won't see that either. That's way back in the...
And then lastly, the question was, under the windows, are they split system?
PTAC units in the residential rooms.
Similar to a hotel.
Hotel, yeah, similar to a hotel, yeah.
And then, do you have an east elevation with you?
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, this is that one-story element.
I'm sorry, what, was
So
there...
they just asked for-
From this elevation, you can see the doors coming out onto by the roof, on the stair towers, right? That's right.
Oh,
That's a rear elevation.
yeah, I think, I can't remember if we ended up having the door out to the side or if it's actually going to be here. But either way, you're really not going to see any of this from, I mean, it slopes down a hill. I don't think you could see it from anywhere.
That's the back of the building also, correct?
Correct, yeah.
What is the purpose of having a stairway up to the roof? Is that a-
It's required by code.
Yeah.
One is required, we provided two just because it's fairly large
Part of it.
building.
I wasn't sure.
So I assume I'm new, so that's a flat roof and that's sort of a parapet going around.
Correct, yeah, the sloping element is essentially acts as a parapet. It'll conceal any mechanical equipment up there, hopefully, and by and large, most of the roof will be flat.
I think you got a great mixture of texture and color, so thank you very much for that.
Sure, thank you.
Any other comments?
We didn't get any comments from the architectural consultant, right?
No.
Just what they
No, just
discussed?
what they,
Okay.
I mean, I think we're ready to hear from the public
Yes.
personally, but,
Yeah, as you know, Mr. Chairman, this site has had a number of different uses.
Yeah.
So the public certainly
Yeah.
want to comment. It's still already an office building on this site. Paladin's been on the
Yeah.
site, so getting neighbor comments is.
yeah, I'm curious to hear from the neighbors. If we think we're ready, how about a motion for public hearing? Can we schedule one? We just have to schedule one motion. All right? Good with that? Let's hear from the public on this. It'd be a great project to hear from.
So
Nice
we'll be
job.
back, we'll be back in a couple weeks. and
Yeah.
We'll bring these same materials to be able to present to the public, and
And if you would, bring the box of wine again.
we'll do. We'll do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thank you. That's a good use of that property. Yeah.
It's got the style of that.
Next on the agenda is we have a referral from the town board for Centennial Golf Club, change of zoning. Oh, I'm sorry. Biscovich, South Lake Boulevard. And for those that if anyone just walked in, Homeland Towers is being held over at their request for the next meeting. Biscovich. Mike?
There are details missing from the plat. We need to know existing fence, proposed fence, if there is any proposed fence, height of fence, give me the detail of it. Eventually, they will need to get to the zoning board of appeals, but once we get all the details, we can refer them over there. Wetland permit, Joel acknowledged that in his last acknowledgement to my comments, and special use permit from the state also, he acknowledges that, so.
Pat?
Joel's addressed all the site plan issues on this one, Mr. Chairman.
Rich?
So, it's a lot of the same comments from last time. The drawing should provide a legend which contains all significant features. The applicant had noted the comment, but no legend was provided. Short environmental assessment form notice that it's in a FEMA floodplain. Applicant has noted that comment will provide. They also said that they will meet with the ECB. Applicant notes that the project is on Route 6M, which is a state road. It does not believe we need to meet with the state DOT. As there is a state DOT drainage easement on the site, the applicant should confirm with the New York State DOT that no additional approvals are required. Note on the drawing says electric is proposed. Details as how the electric is being installed needs to be provided. In addition, any proposed lighting should be provided along with the lighting spill plan. These details are required for further review. Additional details should be provided to how the features will be installed, construction sequence. Applicant has noted, and this comment indicated it will be provided once the necessary variances are granted. These details are required for review prior to giving to the zoning board. Parking spot will be installed. Applicant has noted that none are proposed, which requires a variance. Must show location of erosion sediment control measures being used during construction. Again, this will be provided, the applicant has indicated they will be provided once necessary variances are granted. These details are needed for review to give a message to the review to the board. None are proposed for parking and fencing details. Applicant has noted comment has indicated that the information will be provided if the necessary variances are granted and the project moves forward. These details are required for me to give a review to the planning board.
Thank you. And Pat, you had no comments on this?
No, they've addressed all the planning issues.
So
Good
Joel,
evening-
there's
good
a
evening
lot-
again.
Go ahead.
Anyway, one of the big things that was discussed at the planning board from the members was the fact that our dock was going out more than the 25-foot requirement. I met with the client, and basically we made a change to the drawing so that that variance is now gone. I know both Mike and Rich are talking about details, but there are a lot of details that have to be provided. If we don't get the variances, the project is dead, so it makes no sense to go through all of this, spend the client's money to do all these details. If the variance is not granted, we have no project, so I would respectfully request that we go to the zoning board. I know Mike pointed out to me, and I understand that. If for some reason, if we get the variances, the project goes ahead, we need something, another variance, I doubt that very much, but we're willing to take that chance because I don't think we should have to go through all of this, all the details which will be provided. We still have to go to the ECB, but nothing can happen unless we get the zoning variances.
What size fence is out by the road?
Excuse me?
What size fence is out by the road?
It's an existing fence.
That's not what I said.
What's the question?
How high is the fence out by the
I
road?
have no idea.
Okay.
No,
that-
I understand that, but
That's
that.
my issue, it could need a variance if it's over 4 feet. The dock lot, you're only allowed 4-foot fences. That's the issue I have.
I've been out to that property. That's a proverbial 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag there, right? There's a lot of stuff there happening in a
Exactly.
little area. I'd like to hear from the board, but I think the details are really important on this because it's just so clustered there. It's just so tight. Hopefully some of you had a chance to go out there. Any comments or looked it up, but thoughts, please?
I would agree. It's very hard to understand what's going on out there, and I'd like to see the details.
Yeah, and Joel, I appreciate the concern you have about wanting to get the zoning, but I think as a board, it's our obligation to make sure that, we look into these details. I mean, it's just my opinion. I'm one of a few here, but that's, I think and I'm not trying to pick on you, but I thought we had that conversation last time, that we said, let's get these issues at least ironed out, and then we could send you over to zoning and then try to get the variance.
I remember, obviously, I took that into consideration, discussing with the client. We did make a major concession by pulling the dock back, which was a big concern of the board at the last meeting, if you recall.
No, definitely.
But I still feel, obviously it's your decision, but to go through, a lot of details, and not knowing if we're ever gonna have a project, it seems like a lot of work to do.
I hear you.
Joel, if I may, with regard to the pulling the dock back question, I'm confused. If I'm looking at this drawing right.
It's hard to hear you, Carl, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, if I'm looking at the drawing correctly, there's new dock and then there's a extension of a dock, like a pier. That's 25 feet, but the new dock from the shoreline looks like it's a little more than 10 feet already. So that's a total of 35 feet. How do we get to 25 feet from shore?
Because this first of all, this is 1 inch, it was 5 feet. So from the shoreline to here is 25 feet.
Not, okay,
Carl, I put a ruler on it. It's
Is it?
25 feet.
okay. I see a 10-foot down here for it looks like the existing dock. All right.
Yeah,
To
from-
to the shoreline.
To
it's
the high
25
water
feet.
mark is exactly the wording in the code.
Okay.
Carl, a couple of meetings ago, the board had asked to have the surveyor go out and locate the
Locate it,
shoreline,
yes.
which we did.
Fair enough. The experts have confirmed, that's fine. It just looked funny. I can't
Yeah,
quite
the
see
high
it.
water mark is the trick word there. It's not the beginning of the dock, it's where the high water mark is.
Correct.
Never mind.
Joel, I see almost 2 pages of comments here. We have, the season's almost over for the lake and boating and docks. I'd like you to at least attempt to finish off some of these details with Rich and Mike and come back hopefully at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Centennial Golf Club, this is referred to as from the town board. Mike?
Do you want us to go first, or would you like the applicant to give their?
Well, actually, probably the applicant.
Probably this time, if you don't mind.
I'm somewhat familiar,
Thank
but
you.
no one else here, so, good evening.
My name is William Schilling, and I represent Centennial Golf Club LLC.
Can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah, it's our system, not necessarily you.
We turned off the fans.
Yeah.
Much better.
Thank you.
Peter and David Leibowitz are members. They are here this evening. Larry Monroe is from Chase Engineering. He is here this evening. Is it on? Is that better?
There we go.
And Frank Smith, my associate, is here to discuss the merits of what we seek today. The record should reflect that this is an application or a petition for a zone change, and you have the petition in your file. Also, about a week ago, I submitted an outline to you with some PowerPoints in the hopes that it would clarify the issues that are presented here this evening. I want to say that in 37 years of practice and many appearances before this board, I consider this one of the most significant and exciting applications that I've ever had. I think it's a monumental importance to the town and to the hamlet. And so the thing that we're mired by is our time constraints, which we'll discuss in just a moment. But I think the advantages to the town and to the hamlet are so profound that I hope this board will embrace what it is we're trying to do. Currently, the track is a 27-hole golf course. It consists of 350 acres. On the site is a clubhouse, a banquet center, a restaurant, and of course the golf course, and again, it's 350 acres. Unquestionably, this campus fills the needs and the desires and the initiatives of your codes, the end of town law, in that it furthers recreation, it furthers social, and it furthers green space. The application involves the westerly part of the golf course that is now 9 holes, bordering much on Kelly Ridge. Simply stated, what we're looking to do is a petition for a zone change to make the 9 holes back to its original zoning of R1, discontinue the 9 holes, and convert the 9 holes to a cluster subdivision at the base of the site, away from Kelly Ridge, so that Kelly Ridge won't lose the landscaping and the views that it currently has. As a condition, my client would sign a deed restriction in perpetuity forever, that there could be no development, residential or commercial, on the remaining part of the site. And the remaining part of the site is 250 acres, which is an amazing and very consequential concession that my client is making to forever bar any development on those 250 acres. In doing so, the goals of your code and the goals of town law are met in that it's preserving green space, it's preserving recreational opportunities, and this site is a social hub for many people in the town and in the village of Carmel. We're talking about protecting over 250 acres, which is, again, a contribution which I think the town of Carmel and the hamlet would inure to great benefit. We'd also cluster the base around Kelly Ridge to preserve Kelly Ridge's green space and their views that they have. As per the outline in the application, this is an application pursuant to your code of 15676 and 273 of the town law. Effectively, the procedure that's marked is the matter first goes to town board, referred to planning board for comment and for approval and recommendations, and then the public hearing would be held at the town board after you make your findings. This is codified in your town code and in town law. A brief history of this, and I'll be brief because Peter Leibowitz is going to speak to that fact, but the golf course was approved in the 1990s. Significantly, there were no restrictions to what we're doing today in our approval back in the late 1990s. At the time, the property was zoned R1, which is single-family residences. There's an entitlement to 162 sewer units at the time, and over the years, my client has paid over $3 million for that entitlement. Currently, this site provides recreation, social, and green space by virtue of the golf course and the amenities that I spoke about already. However, Frank will discuss very briefly with you the peril that golf courses find themselves in these days. The dynamic is completely different. Golf courses all over this nation and all over the state are in peril. They're failing, and Frank will speak to that dynamic, which are in the courts and in all the boards in New York and across the nation. The golf courses have become less profitable, outings more infrequent, play reduced. And so this dynamic is completely different than it was when my clients ventured to open a 27-hole golf course some 20 years ago. It's not uncommon now for golf courses to sell to more profitable uses, whether it be residential or commercial. And it's happening again in Long Island, it's happening in upstate New York, it's happening in Westchester, to sell to a more profitable use because of the problems that the golf courses are incurring. And my client is incurring a similar fate here. Mr. Leibowitz will attest to devastating losses in the last number of years on this site, and the burden it is to take care of 27 holes as opposed to 18. As a business person, this is a matter of survival. This isn't something that Mr. and Mr. Leibowitz would like to be doing here. It's something they have to do. It's a matter of economic survival. And so what it comes down to is having our 18-hole golf course, to having a cluster development at the base of the property, and have all the attributes that it currently brings, the jobs and what have you it currently brings, or in the alternative, a conventional, as-of-right subdivision on the entire track, in which case we would lose the golf course, we would lose the banquet center and the other amenities, and we would lose the scenic beauty that this campus currently has. To me, it's a great opportunity for the town to keep 250 acres green or golf, and to have all the amenities that we currently have, keep the golf course, and keep all of the things that make it a social staple in the hamlet and in the town of Carmel. On the issue of the law, I have provided several means of authority as to what we're doing and the authority for, or the rationale and the legal basis for our efforts tonight. The first one is case law. It's called conditional zoning, and it's been set forth in a landmark case called Church versus the Town of Islip. And in that case, it said the Court of Appeals, it's the highest court in the state of New York, said that it confirmed that the town can change the zoning with conditions that inure to the benefit of the town. Again, I ask you to consider the incredible benefits that would be granted if this zone change were approved. The second means of authority is the Greenway connection, which Carmel adopted. The code section is 15690. It was formally adopted by the town of Carmel, and in its commentary it says the town should encourage use of incentives for preserving recreation and green space. I also want to point to your planner's memorandum. I don't want anyone to intimate that Mr. Cleary supports or doesn't support this project, but as a prelude to the losing my thought here, as a prelude to the master plan, which is in its infancy, he said that there is a need for smaller lots, that the lack of smaller lots leads to the accusation of exclusionary zoning, and that smaller lots are important for people that don't have the means or the desire to maintain. For these reasons and other reasons, we think that this proposition is an appropriate proposal before this board. I'd like to submit to you that this is a great opportunity, but the opportunity is fleeting. It is your opportunity to use conditional zoning, which is approved by the Court of Appeals and by other towns and other jurisdictions within the state of New York. We'd like to keep the 18 holes. We'd like to keep the clubhouse and the restaurant. We'd like to keep the banquet center. All are important features within the hamlet. We'd like to see Kelly Ridge buffered so that they get to not see the development that would occur in a conventional layout. The alternative is a full site plan, conventional site plan as of right, which would consist of some 95 to 100 units on the entire tract of the property. And again, I'm not saying this as a gun to the head. I'm saying it because this is economic survival here. This has to be done by my clients because they can't sustain the losses they've incurred over the last number of years. The 1,000-pound gorilla in the room is the master plan. It's what I couldn't think of, the word. Maybe it was consciously not. The master plan is in its infancy. We know that. We know that master plans can take 3 and 4 years. And we also know that with a change of administration, change of personnel, the whole thing could be scrapped. The master plan, in my mind, is illusory. It's illusory for the discussion this evening. This is a proposal that's before you now. The master plan may or may not occur in the future, and if it does, it's 3 or 4 or 5 years away. To me, it's an illusory obstacle. It shouldn't be in your consideration when deciding the plight of my client's application. And it is, in any event, a long time away. There is no town board stopping you. The planning board is still open and open for business. I've seen this board pass projects in the last number of months, notwithstanding the coming, if you will, of the master plan. So I ask you not to hide behind it. I ask you not to deflect to it. This is an application that needs to be considered now, because if we don't consider it, we lose an opportunity. The opportunity through conditional zoning is to keep 250 acres green and to keep a social and recreational hub in place. The green space, the 250 acres, will be green forever. For that, after this, I would like to introduce Peter Leibowitz for a short discussion of the factual background.
Thank you, Bill. I'm Peter Leibowitz from Centennial Golf. You know, it's something being in this room. 25 years ago, I came in this room before the then planning board to discuss the possibility of building a golf course. Unfortunately, the golf business has changed in the last 25 years. A lot of our plans that seemed to work in the first 5 or 6 years has been changed by changing the world generally. So we are here before you to try to keep 18 holes in place and our other facilities. Bill stole some of my lines, so forgive me if I'm redundant on some of these items. So to give you an update on Centennial Golf and why we're here, one thing we have to say, we are very proud of the fact that we're considered one of the best, okay, thank you, we're one of the best facilities in the greater metropolitan area of New York. The facility is made up of, as I hope you all know, 27 holes, pro golf shops, teaching facilities, driving range, practice facilities, and our social venues, which are really important, includes the grill room, Ryder Cup room, and pavilion. These social facilities average approximately 7,500 guests per year. Our community uses these facilities for a wide range of uses such as weddings, baptisms, confirmations, graduation celebrations, etc. The Ryder Cup room is used for smaller events and business meetings. Additionally, on average, is also used for 20 insurance seminars for seniors per year. We have a number of golf schools and special camps for young children. We provide discounts for all Putnam residents who play golf on the course. We are also the proud supporters of the Carmel High School team, which we provide free golf for their practice and matches. When Centennial acquired what was then the Tilly Foster Farm, the property was zoned 1 acre, permitting 162 homes. Based upon that number of units, we have paid over $3 million in sewer charges and continue to pay $21,000 additional sewer capital charges per year. So the heart of the bad part of this is the golf play has declined over 18 years. Reported by the National Golf Foundation's round plays have declined approximately 120 million rounds per year. Consistent with these findings, our play has continued to decline. Since the year 2000, our golf revenue has gone down 47%, and capital operating costs continue to rise. The net effect is that continuing to operate as a 27-hole facility is financially unfeasible. The decline in golf has affected private clubs as well. The loss of membership fees have forced private clubs to offer outings every day of the week, as opposed to the way that it used to be they would only provide outings on Mondays. This has made Centennial less competitive, and our outing business has declined at a significant rate. As you know, a golf course is comprised of 18 holes. However, when we built the course, we added a third 9 known as fairways, in order that when we had outings, we could accommodate both regular play and outings by using a rotation of the 3 9s. So with fewer outings and rounds, we were evaluating closing fairways. A number of years ago, we started to analyze alternative solutions, with experimenting with some innovative programs, and even created a working relationship with Troon Golf, who is the largest manager of golf courses in the United States. However, the results of these programs have failed, and our operating losses are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The bottom line is there are less people playing golf, and all statistical analysis suggests that this trend will continue. We've come up with only 2 options at this time. Our desirable solution would be to continue operating lakes and meadows and maintaining all social functions. In order to accomplish this, we will close fairways and be willing to deed restrict it from any future development. This is the land contiguous to Kelly Ridge. Our plan would be to build 96 units as a cluster home development. This plan provides that over 90% of our 350 acres would remain as open green space. We have agreement with Toll Brothers, who's one of the leading and most reputable home builders in the country, to be the residential developer. The alternative proposal, which was mentioned before, would be to build 52 houses on the Carmel property, which is permitted under the 3-acre zone, and 40 homes on the southeast parcel. And we are aware that the town is considering a master plan review. This is a long and difficult process, and our ability to fund these losses will no longer be possible. I hope you agree, by keeping the 18-hole golf course along with our social venues remain open, which would be what we believe in the best interest of everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Frank Smith III, the law office of William Schilling for the petitioners. And this evening, I'm here to tell you that the issues faced by the Centennial Golf Club are not unique to the petitioners, and those issues are not unique to the town of Carmel. Nationwide, for the past 13 years, annually, more golf courses have closed than have opened. In 2018 alone, more than 150 golf courses across the United States closed up shop and ceased to exist. Believe it or not, this past July, our regional newspaper, the Journal News, through their website LOHUD, published an article titled, "Former Golf Courses Eyed for Possible Development in New York and New Jersey." In that article, they mentioned 6 golf courses, and of the 6, 5 of them are in the mid to lower Hudson Valley, right in our geographic area. Municipalities across the state have used conditional zoning and creative land use techniques to preserve golf courses in particular, but along with recreational uses and open space, while simultaneously allowing for development. In Amenia, New York, just north of us in Dutchess County, the Silo Ridge project was granted zoning waivers. This project retained an 18-hole golf course. They constructed more than 240 dwelling units, and of the 670 acres, 80% of the property was retained as open space. In Rotterdam, New York, just outside of Albany, the Whispering Pines Golf Course was granted its own change in order to build 496 units on 90 acres of property while retaining a 9-hole course. In Accord, New York, across the river in Ulster County, the Rondout Country Club is in the midst of a redevelopment. That's an 18-hole course currently. It's going to be reverted to a 9-hole course. They're going to do mixed use, residential, and commercial, and also build a hotel on the premises. Lastly, I would like to tell you that the municipalities across the state have used creative zoning techniques to solve modern problems, such as the one we're looking at here today. Smaller lot requirements, cluster subdivision, mixed-use developments, conditions or exactions, deed restrictions, and other techniques have been used successfully across the state to preserve open space, to mitigate negative environmental impacts, and to allow for smart growth. As opposed to a traditional subdivision, this project, as you'll see, and as Mr. Boudreau after me will explain, will seek to utilize 17 acres. Those 17 acres, if combined with the golf clubhouse, the cart storage, the maintenance room, or maintenance barn, I should say, and parking, will keep more than 90% of the 350-acre property open as open space or for golf. This project requires modern solutions and modern zoning techniques in order to preserve the golf course and to preserve open space within the town of Carmel. We thank you for your consideration. Have a nice evening, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Larry Boudreau next.
Thank you, Frank, and good evening. My name is Larry Boudreau. I work with the Shays and Companies. I'm a principal there, and I'm a professional landscape architect. And I was with Peter 25 years ago presenting to this board for Centennial Golf. I know the project very well. I live at 55 Root Avenue in Carmel, so I'm here. I was tasked with doing the site plan and then initiating an environmental assessment, big picture, to show you what the impact is for the proposed project. The plan to my immediate left is 200 scale. It shows the concept within the context of the whole golf course, 27 holes. The next one just zooms in to the 96 unit project. It's color-coded because to the right of the page are those units which will be in the Carmel School District. To the left, the yellow are in the Southeast School District. So even though the entire project is in Carmel, the school district line goes right through the middle of them. Of course, Root Avenue is here, John Simpson here, Fair Street there. This development sits at the corner of Fair Street and Simpson. To make it work, we are relocating the parking lot, which is here into the town of Southeast. The idea is that Carmel has water and sewer, town of Southeast does not. The breakout is 40 to the north of the clubhouse. The clubhouse remains to the south. The 56 units is in where the driving range is currently today. But again, entirely in the town of Carmel, both sides. Clubhouse, cart barn, the entrance road all stays the same. The project enters on the same entrance that's there today. The only thing we did was add an emergency access on Fair Street. Again, emergency access only. So to jump into this thing, we looked at a few things. Again, big picture, wetlands, water, wastewater, traffic, and fiscal. So we knew the wetlands, if they changed, because they were flagged 25 years ago, we redelineated the wetlands and got DEC out here to confirm it. And with that new line, this layout reflects the buffer. Water, wastewater, Centennial Golf, as Peter's mentioned, is in Carmel Water District number 2 and Carmel Sewer District number 2 and 2A. Centennial Golf paid $3 million to be in the district. And this, of course, allows us to tap into the district at a flow rate based and controlled by zoning. Under the current zoning, the maximum potential development flow could be potentially 66,000 gallons per day. Our proposal, the 96 units, is projected to be 42,000 gallons a day, so that's 24,000 less than the maximum allowable under the current zoning. For 20-plus years, Centennial has one hookup, and that's just the clubhouse. The maintenance and all that is in the town of Southeast, all on septic. Traffic. The finding statements written 25 years ago anticipated 87 trips during the weekday AM peak, 91 trips during the weekday PM peak, and 124 for the peak hour of use for Saturday. This proposal, we ran the numbers, and there was a reduction in the AM peak by 11. Again, it's 96 units with 18 holes of golf, not 27, so that comes out. Again, there's a reduction in the AM peak by 11, an increase of the PM peak by 15, and an increase of 1 trip on the Saturday peak hour of use. So not a significant impact. Again, using the same entrance as in play, we know there's good sight line there. The parking lot has to use that for the golf, and same thing with the project. Fiscal, so we looked at a couple things here, but one, we had to project the number of residents and the number of anticipated school children for K through 12. So the number of residents is expected to be 373, and the contribution to the school, 37. We did the calculations on costs. Of course, all this data can be presented to Pat for his review, but there is an overall net positive benefit to the town with our calculations of $560,000 annually. The last thing I was asked to do was, it was mentioned several times, is to look at a conventional plan, sketch. So that's what this one is here, and I overlaid on the existing golf course, the Carmel side, which is 3-acre zoning, and the southeast side, which is 60,000 square feet per lot. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your attention. Your favorable recommendation would lead to saving the golf course, saving the restaurant, the jobs involved with the banquet center, the restaurant, and the golf. This is, as I said, a social staple in our town and in our hamlet. And you would secure 250 acres in perpetuity of green space for golf, 250, never to be developed again. If denied, Mr. Boudreau told you what the inevitable would have to be, and that would be a conventional layout subdivision in the two towns with about 96 units. I want to remind you once again, this is about survival. This is not about a choice that the Leibowitzes have. It's about economic survival. It's legally appropriate because it's codified in the town law, it's codified in your code, it's codified in the Greenway Pact. Mr. Cleary in his memo indicated the need for smaller lots in what would be the future master plan, and that's consistent with the memo. And it's consistent with case law. Frank indicated that this is happening in the nation, but also right around the neighborhood in all our neighboring towns. The town would have an opportunity today to gain a benefit that they wouldn't be able to gain if you choose to defer to the master plan. The comprehensive plan is in its infancy. We can't wait. It just can't wait. So I ask you please not to defer in a situation where action is needed now. I know that this takes courage, and I know this takes insight, and I ask you just to follow the procedures outlined by the law. Give a favorable recommendation to the concept if you believe the concept is worthwhile. The town board would then hold the public hearing to determine if it goes into a new zone. Once it's in a new zone, site plan issues, all those things they come before your board, and all the things that you need to know will be made known to you. The first step is for this board to give a recommendation, favorable, negative, or no recommendation at all to the town board, and then we go to the town board for the public hearing. Once again, I say to you as a 60-year member and resident of the town of Carmel, I think this is a very important evening this evening, and I hope you agree with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the thorough review. Mike, comments?
Yeah, the only issue, I mean, the existing master plan that was done, I know he doesn't want to hear master plan, but we have to talk about it because that's what we're working under right now, does not even envision 1 acre zoning. Okay, so are we talking about making a 1 acre zone here as well as making a law that allows all this? Or, I mean, it's not envisioned in the current existing plan that we have in front of us. There is no zoning for 1 acre zoning to allow a cluster. My opinion, as I said to them in a meeting, I thought it was going to be a variance would be the answer at that point, not a change of zoning, but that's, just my opinion. It's something that we're kind of bound by. Our code doesn't have 1 acre zoning.
Do we have a feel for when, approximately, I'm sure there's not a firm date, do we have a feel for when the master plan would be done?
I think they just
I'm sure everyone's curious about that.
They just took RFPs, I believe,
They're
or something.
interviewing firms now, so the consultant hasn't even selected yet, but it's Bill's right, it's several years down.
Absolutely.
Target is 2021.
2021 to be complete?
That's my understanding from my conversation. So just to be clear, that's the completion of the comprehensive plan. That would then require zoning amendments and so forth, that would follow thereafter, so that's not the end goal.
Oh.
So it's a considerable length of time.
Mike, any other comments?
No, as I said, the 1 acre zoning is just something that we don't have right now, and it's not, what are we gonna base it on? I mean, is somebody else gonna now come down the road and say, listen, I had this subdivision for 10 years, I can only make money if I can get it to 1 acre zoning, and then are we gonna be stuck? I know you have a golf course that you're giving also, I'm not saying that, but it's, I don't know, I just, be careful, that's all.
Pat?
So, you heard it explained to you quite well this evening. The process, however, is quite complicated. So Bill touched on a bit of it, but as Mike is alluding to, the first step in this would be to recreate or create a 1 acre zone, which we don't have any longer. So the petition didn't establish what parameters would be established. So it's unclear the intent is to recreate the old 1 acre zone or a new 1 acre zone. That means all the uses, all the dimensional requirements, and more importantly, where the 1 acre zone would apply. So if in fact we create or recreate the old 1 acre zone and simply applied it to one parcel of the town, you're raising the spectrum of spot zoning and things like that. So ordinarily, there's a broader assessment in the creation of a brand new zoning district. That's the first step that has to be done with respect to this application. So that's a significant concern. The property then has to be rezoned to the brand new zone that's created. residential cluster development is a permitted use in what used to be the R1 zone, which no longer exists. It is governed by a formula on density, so that's what Larry has done and provided you what would comply under those provisions. However, there's a very detailed assessment that has to be done. Again, Larry's given you a fairly thorough overview of the environmental site plan issues, but we have to get to that as well and deal with all those issues. Another point that Bill failed to mention is we would then have to amend the Centennial site plan to eliminate this component of it. So that's another procedural element, the amendment of the Centennial golf course. And then we have to deal with seeker for creating an R1 zone, rezoning the property, and then going through the residential cluster development. So that's about as many procedural and administrative steps that you can have with any kind of particular application. So this is a lot of work that's required to deal with this. As you've heard all night long, the town is doing all that work. You've heard Mr. Lee would say he can't wait. So that means the burden is entirely on them to do all the stuff we're talking about this evening, justifying the creation of the R1 zone, justifying its location here, and frankly, determining if it's applicable elsewhere in the town. So if they can't wait for us, they have to do all of that work. So the burden is theirs to go through all of that work. The reference that Mr. Schilling was making to that, to the prior memo, just so if you remember, was this board's recommendation to the town board regarding multifamily housing that we sent them about a year ago, and the town board said it's premature, we're about to do a comprehensive plan, we're not going to take it up at this point. So while we had a consensus that it's a good thing to do, the town board has already sent us a signal saying we need to think about this in the broader context of the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan, as Mike is alluding to, is a significant step for us. We will be doing everything they need us to do, but we're not doing it in time for them. So they have every right to step before you and ask for this to be done. But again, I can't emphasize enough, all of the work has to be done by them.
Thank you. We learned a lot and heard a lot here today.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just so the task that's assigned to you, the town board has referred to you this zoning petition. Your obligation is to provide comment back to the town board. You can send a positive recommendation, a negative recommendation. You can just send your comments back to the town board. The form of your response isn't dictated by law, just that this occur. So you have a certain period of time with which to get back to the town board. So the format of and what you need to say, you need to deliberate and determine. But it can be anything from I like it, I don't like it, or here are all the issues you need to consider.
What about, based on what we heard tonight, if I asked the consultants to dig deeper and look into this some more, yourself and Rich and Mike, I mean, I've met with this team before, the rest of the board hasn't. I like to hear from them, but I'm personally not ready to make I'd like to learn more from you, Pat, and Rich and Mike, but let's open up to these.
So I have a question, Pat, with regard to what we had sent on cluster housing to the board that you alluded to. Can you?
Excuse me, the cluster housing doesn't go to the board. That's a permitted thing right now. It's the 1 acre zoning that needs to go to the board, and then they can do the cluster by right.
That's where I needed some clarification.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that you understood.
So we've done this before. We've had cluster projects before. Our code is essentially a formula, so it's not even that discretionary. So there's deductions that are automatic with respect to constraints and so forth, and then there's a number that comes out at the end of that process. But in this case, it would be based on 1 acre zoning. That doesn't exist yet. So that's the cart before the horse issue with the rest of it.
I see. So if I understand it then, to get the number of units they want to build, that it needs to be declared 1 acre.
That's correct.
If it stayed at 3 acre, it's not.
The assumption is they wouldn't have an economic.
Not really viable.
Alternative, a savior.
So how would the 1 acre zoning apply? Each cluster would need 1 acre?
The parcel itself would be rezoned presumably to 1 acre, and once it's 1 acre, the residential cluster calculation kicks in.
And we're only making this decision, obviously, on the piece that's in Carmel. Southeast must be seeing
So
the
that's
same
other piece.
information.
Southeast will have a role in this because they're putting things that were in Carmel onto Southeast property, so their planning board will have to address an amended site plan on that site as well. So that's yet another administrative step, but that's another journey and not our role.
All housing is in the town of
But
Carmel.
all- okay, that
But
was-
some of the housing is in the school district of Southeast
Okay,
and
that
Brewster,
was-
I don't remember
that's what I
exactly,
wanted
and
clarification.
Carmel.
Thank
So,
you.
so just another point with respect to that, all that triggers an intermunicipal review from the county planning board. That means they'll likely have something to say about this as well.
Right.
So just more people, fingers in the pie.
I have two questions, if I could. First of all, looking at the, where you color the houses, I see phase one, phase two. Can you elaborate on that?
It's just not really a phase, it's just for identification, north and south. It's all one project. It's color-coded to show Carmel School Central District and Brewster Central School District.
Yeah, I got the color part, but I'm just concerned about the words phase one and phase two.
Okay, it's all one project?
All one project.
All one project?
All right.
Okay.
All right, now the next question is, you had mentioned some numbers about, 96 units, and then you were saying, which probably represents this many occupants, this many school age. Can you give us those numbers again?
Yes, I can supply the data, but it came from the Rutgers, and again, I have it in my book there, but it's common planning practice. So we have a whole team of planners with me that do fiscal analysis, and I give them the project, the number of units. You can look it up in planning practice guidelines for 96 four-bedrooms. That equates to a number. That number was 300 and something for residents occupying the site. And then from a fiscal standpoint, I can go into the code and analyze what it costs the town to support that additional number of residents. And same thing with the school children. It worked out to, I think, 38 or whatever, and I can analyze what it costs Carmel to put that many kids to school. Then I can also look at the revenue generated by the property tax and the tax from the town. And again, I have all that, and I can supply it, Pat can review it, and then it shows a net benefit to the town of over $500,000 annually. So it covers the kids, covers the additional residents in the community.
Right. I mean, I would be more interested in rather than a generalization based.
Okay, I have it.
I'm more interested, the 500-pound gorilla in a room is that the property taxes in this community are very, very high. And the 75–80% of it is school tax. We have had people, and I used to be on a school board, and there were many people that had said, I just can't afford to live in this community anymore because of the school taxes. And, when I see a development like that, although I think it's a great thing, the thing that pops into my mind right away is how many children now are going to be added to the school district? And to me, it looks like quite a few.
So the number I cited was 37 school kids, K through 12.
37 kids out of 96 units? But I guess that's just based on averages.
Yeah, it's a factor. It's 0.93 times each unit. Projected number of residents population is 373. And then, all right, so how's that a net benefit to the town? So you run all the calculations, you get all the budget information, and you can work that through.
I get that. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I get it. I just think.
It's all factors.
Yeah,
It's adding and multiplying numbers times.
These units, have you guys thought about price point? Are these going to be priced for high-end, middle?
Well, the price I used for the fiscal analysis was $550 for the unit.
Sorry, but the question right now really is the 1 acre zoning and whether or not, and I'm not trying to,
I get
silence you, I'm just saying it's, without that, we can't even think about it.
Right, That's exactly it,
It's numbers.
because
This is more about the zoning and the rezoning of the.
But the application cites a number of economic benefits to the town. I have a follow-on question.
Yeah, yeah.
Do these projections in terms of the revenues to the town take into account whether these would be sold as condominiums?
there are 96 units, and, hold on a second, in 25 separate buildings. Most of them are 4-unit buildings. So I believe each building will have its lot, and then the 4 will be condoed from that.
So these will be sold as condos?
Townhouses, yeah. Yeah, and then there's an HOA, homeowners association.
So I'm just drilling down into the numbers here. So do the numbers reflect the tax revenue that would be applicable to a condo as opposed to a non-condo residence?
Good question. I'll check. I can check that.
If it does not, that would be a crucial piece of information.
Okay. I can check.
So, Pat, I'm not familiar at all with the scope of work of the master plan, right? I would think it's commercial, downtown, green space.
It's fairly broad.
Right.
So again, they haven't selected a consultant with a scope, and that's what's being negotiated now, but it's my understanding it is soup to nuts, full, complete coverage.
So, a part of that will be looking at our 3-acre zone and cluster home.
No doubt about it.
Is there a way to prioritize, you do stages, phase 1, let's look at residential zoning. Phase 2, let's look at commercial. Maybe phase 10 is parks and recreation. I don't know, but if the master plan, I think Joe mentioned possibly 2021, call it year-end 2021, then your whole process, call it 2022. But is there a way to make a win-win out of this, that we can follow our comprehensive master plan? But I would think the beginning of the master plan might be 2 years out, and the end of it might be 4 years out, or some number in between there.
Yeah, so I think that's not what the town board had envisioned, but it's been done that way elsewhere, when they just focus on residential stuff and then the hamlets next and commercials. So they certainly could structure it that way. That's something you may want to pass along as a thought to them, primarily because you have a pending application that, as Mr. Schilling indicated, is one of the more monumental applications the town has seen in a while. So that's something the town board should certainly be aware of. Whether they choose to do that or not, it's entirely up to them.
I just think there's a big difference between the start of the master plan and the end of the master plan.
Have you looked at it as economically feasible? Now, this is good, the whole third scenario here is working within our code at 3-acre zoning. Maybe reduce the acreage on the golf course, because that is happening around. I'm hearing a lot become 9 holes. Work with the 3-acre zoning and get a combination that may work with our current codes. I mean, I'm just putting that out there as if that's economically feasible, that would get you another solution. So, I mean.
Well, the alternative is that we do 50 houses on a 3-acre zone. And to do that, as you point out, we're getting rid of the golf course. It all becomes residential land.
There's no in between.
But could you do a cluster zoning, a cluster home arrangement on the existing property that would give you the golf course, but just a reduced number of homes?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Want me to simplify?
Yeah.
Our cluster allows for open space and certain things, and then you build on a tighter density on a smaller piece of land. Okay, but overall, you're developing at the exact density that you would be allowed to build on anyway. Correct?
So in other words, you get a third of the lots, you get a third of the buildings you could have. That's what we're talking about.
He gets,
If it goes from 3 acre to 1 acre.
that's correct. He gets a third,
you
he
can
gets
only build
exactly what he's
1/3
entitled
as many
to.
buildings in a smaller footprint and so forth.
But he gets exactly what he's entitled
Down to
to.
nine holes and builds additional homes.
So instead
So
of,
you're not going to
instead
the other
of
extreme.
96, instead of 96 homes, you have 186, I'm just doing simple math, you'd end up with a third of that, so that would be 60 homes clustered, and then the remainder would be open space, which could be the golf course.
Well, we're closing, we're gonna open and close fairways as open space.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We're gonna close fairways.
Is that the
Which
top one?
That's the top, that's, yeah.
That's the one by Kelly Ridge
By
Road.
Kelly Ridge Road, that's gonna be
That whole piece
closed.
right there Along the ridge.
Yes, that's gonna be closed and deed restricted. Once we do that, though, we don't have enough land to go what you're suggesting. Because I believe that parcel is 98 acres.
I thought I looked at the cluster zoning and it said only 35% of the undeveloped property would need to be preserved. So at 186 acres, and I mean, it would seem you could have your cake and eat it too.
We'll look at that.
You don't have to answer this right now,
No,
just
we'll-
if you could
Yeah.
look at that, because if you want to move now is on 3 acres. If you could relay out that site to make that work, that it's economically within your goal.
I just want to point one other thing out. We know it's a big ask, but we've been pretty good members of this community for the last 22 years. And in another project we've done, past, we had the same issue about the zone change became a precedent that other people would have. So the zone, what they did ultimately is they restricted it to the special parts that we had. So nobody else would be able to provide this kind of open space, would maintain an 18-hole golf course and all the other facilities. And that's a way that the deal we did do worked out, just pointing that on the table.
Right, so that was not part of the petition, so there are ways to craft zoning that
Right.
can achieve some of those goals, but again,
You need to propose it to us.
Just so you know, we want to stay here. We don't want to close the golf course.
And we want to work with you, it's just,
Right.
you know,
So, and maybe we're using the wrong language on variances versus other things.
Correct.
And maybe there are other things that, we can work together to figure out how to do it. But I view it as, we've been a partner with the town for 22 years, and how can we continue to do so? And maybe we got to search for a better structure than we're providing today. We're open to figure out how to do that.
well, the only thing I would say is by virtue of the fact that the town board referring this petition to the planning board, I think the town board's saying we're gonna try to help you figure a way to get this done, if it's possible. They could have rejected the petition outright.
Right.
So
And
it's not gonna-
we appreciate that. We're all trying to do our best here.
Now, if you get a variance, it could be a case-by-case scenario. Where if you do a zoning change, it's across the board for that zone that you create. And therefore, you just have to watch the wording, I think, and that's what we need to work on fixing the wording that in the request so that it's tighter.
An application for area variances on 98 acres is legislating, Mike. It's not, you bring an application for area variances on 98 acres, that's legislating. There's no way in the world that would pass muster. And as far as our application, I just want to be clear, you don't have to make application to join another classification in existence. You don't have to. Our application says, petitioners request the zoning court of Town of Carmel be amended and the zoning map of the Town of Carmel be reclassified and change the zone of the subject premises from residential 3 to its former classification, which was R1. There's no requirement that you have R1 now. We're seeking to create a new classification. The components of that was what was in the R1 before it was alleviated, before it was removed. So number one, I don't agree at all with the area variance argument. That's legislating and that belongs with the town, not with the planning board. And number two, I don't agree that you have to join into a classification already in existence. You don't. You can create a new classification with parameters defined. The definition was in the old R1.
So that's the clarification, Bill, it was not clear that that's what you meant. So thanks for the clarification. So you're saying we'll recreate the former provisions,
Yes.
setbacks, everything.
With all the parameters, yes.
So we're gonna have a big blue mat with one orange dot on the bottom?
If you're,
Is that what,
if you're
seriously?
concerned about spot zoning, conditional zoning, it is permissible as long as the benefit, quid pro quo, inures to the benefit of the town. 250 acres of green space, that inures to the town.
Just a question about that point and the deed restrictions. So on the open green space, you'd have this deed restriction, the golf course would continue to operate. What happens in 5 years, 10 years, if economics of golf courses get progressively worse and you can't operate that business there anymore? What happens?
It remains forever green. There's no development potential. Perhaps the municipality would take it over and would maintain it in a way that keeps the green space. The golf course can stay as long as it wants. If it has economic problems, it can sell to another proprietor. But it's, the potential for development is now over. It's green forever in perpetuity.
So this is like in the old master plan, when we had the early discussions, it's the sale of building rates almost, on something. You're giving up your right to build on it to get that.
Voluntarily giving
Correct.
up their rights.
Which was discussed, but we didn't
But
actually accept that.
if you're going, I'm sorry, I'm just hypothecating here, but if they go bankrupt down the road and they can't pay their bills, the town can take it over and then it becomes off the tax rolls and becomes further economic burden to the town.
That's absolutely right. And a deed restriction, they get.
Won't solve that.
That's
Yeah.
right, and deed restrictions occasionally are removed from properties too. It's difficult to do, but it's not a forever, ever, and ever solution. It's pretty good, but it has its limitations.
In some circles, the golf course ceasing to exist and it being green, in some circles, that continuation of just green space is a good thing.
But somebody has to own it, and the taxes have to be paid.
Well, that's as Pat suggests, those things can be worked out. The most important thing we're offering you today is no commercial and no residential development on that 250 acres.
So, unless there's any more dialogue, I'd like to make a recommendation that maybe Joe and,
Just procedurally, so that the referral has come from the town board to you. So you have the ability to make a positive or a negative recommendation, exactly what Pat laid out, exactly how Bill laid it out. Time-wise, the referral came to us on July 3rd. If the board is going to put it over for an additional 2 weeks to gather more facts, or at least have the consultants dig deeper into what they've heard tonight, I just ask the applicant to consent to that time so that there's no issue. The board has a 45-day period of time in which to make a decision, otherwise it's deemed a positive referral. So I'd like Mr. Schilling to address that.
Yeah, we're absolutely in agreement that we waive the time constraints imposed by this board. And if more information is requested or required, we'd certainly like to give it to you.
I think we made a lot of progress today. I think we've all learned a lot today. This is a major project for both of us and for the town, so I'd like to ask exactly that, with Joe's help and guidance, and Mike and Pat and Rich, we all like to learn more. You guys should work really close with the next, we'll try to reschedule for 2 weeks if you can get the work done in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
I want to respect the town board and get back to them, but we need to do our due diligence, I think. I'm not ready to, I don't know about anybody else. This is very informative. You guys did a great job presenting tonight.
I think this was good, and I think in 2 weeks, hopefully.
Have you done any calculations with the cluster zoning, with the cluster, if it's permitted? Have you done calculations to see how many units you could get?
You have to give open space title to the additional open space, I believe, right? So that would negate their right to ownership of a golf course, and it would have to be ownership of the 90 homes, so they'd have to either retain the ownership of the homes to retain the ownership of, and they want to sell them, they want to make, I assume, I mean, That's the understanding I had from our last meeting.
But Mark, the preliminary calculation is 96.
96.
Okay, for cluster.
Right, we'd have to verify all that, but that's the first.
Cluster at 1 acre.
Yeah, but if you have a
That's
certain
with
amount
the
of
3
acres, you
acres.
could use that as,
But at 3 acres.
That's with the 3 acre zoning.
yes.
120,000 square foot zoning, whatever you want to call it. It's not true 3 acres.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's hold over. Hopefully the next 2 weeks, if you can get the work done, and we'll work with Rose and try to get on the agenda again. Thank you. Yeah.
That's all she wrote.
Make a motion to adjourn. I can't do that.
As I mentioned several times during the night, Homeland is being held over. With that, do we have minutes? Was it- No, no minutes.
I think it was a long one. I think she's working on it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was a big one.
That's the case. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Before we do that, just a quick suggestion for the next meeting. I know we're going to have cell tower on that meeting, like we'll have Centennial on as well. My suggestion is there are issues that need to be discussed with council that we may want to do an executive session before the meeting.
We did discuss that briefly, so yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's,
Meeting before 7, so we can still be out here at 7.
Yeah, if we start the meeting at 6, motion to exec, and have it these amount.
Hey, Joe, when we're,
Mr. Long, just for-
when we're thinking about this project that just came before us, I mean, I'm concerned about precedent, and, I mean, we've all heard people come in here and say, look, the economics, the times, I'm having problems meeting my bills, and I'm just worried about what effect it's gonna have on other people coming before the board and saying, hey, look.
No, we're still live. Yeah, I think this is just a general discussion. I think the meeting's, we should adjourn the meeting, I believe.
So all I'm
Do I have a
looking for
motion
from
to
you
adjourn?
is some sort of input as to what, if any, precedent it'll create, or if other applicants can come forward, you know.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll address that.
Yeah, that's all.
I'd rather not just go off the top of my head.
Yeah,
at this
of
point.
course, of course.
But it's a concern, and again, the board is being asked to give a recommendation, either positive or negative, and I would suggest that the board also recite facts in support of, or in support of whatever decision the board makes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.